Hey everybody, if you like this content, please feel free to subscribe and give it a thumbs up. That way everybody else can see. Thanks, let's get to the content. Hey, happy Tuesday YouTube. We are back with another trading recap, and as you can see on my screen, I have the stock that I traded this morning. It is ACIU. I wanted to bring it up so that way I could give you guys kind of an idea of why I traded the stock. Here you can see that they had a catalyst this morning which showed them up 63%, so they were showing up on the gapper list this morning in the pre-market. They had some FDA news around an Alzheimer's disease assessment scale, and that boosted their stock through the roof. And as everyone knows, once you see stocks on the gappers in the morning, that's where you want to go. You want to go where the volume is. So I want to go ahead and jump into the charts, show you guys some levels, show you what I was looking at, and the trades I took. Let's jump over to the charts. All right, chart number one is the daily on ACIU. So normally when you have a gapper, you want to look back in time and see if they were a previous runner. That way you know what levels everyone may be looking at. So that was the first thing that I looked at this morning. And as you can tell, this line here was the top level that I had marked, which was 1248. And once we get into the minute charts for this morning, you'll see how that came into play perfectly. I also saw that it had a few lines down here, but we had already gapped up well over any of these levels before I even started looking at the stock this morning. It had already gapped into the double digits before I started trading. So really the only level that I was looking at was 1248. That was a pretty standard. Honestly, everybody was looking at that level, so I felt really comfortable with that being a ceiling. So now we're going to jump in and see why I took the first trade I took this morning, and I'll give you kind of an idea of what I was thinking. So now I have my pointer, and I'm going to show you where I took my first trade and why. So I first saw this stock at around 745, which is around this area right here. And as you can see, I drew this line, which was an ascending triangle, and I drew this support line, which we have here, right across the tops of these candles here. The reason I did that is because I saw that these is where the candles were closing several times, and I felt that that was a really strong area that I could just keep my eye on. So right here was where I took my first trade. And as you can see, this is right around 749. I felt like if it could hold this top, then I was going to take a long for the breakout, because this momentum was pushing the stock up. Everybody saw this flag, and they knew that if it could get above this level, then there was a very good chance it was going to move higher, which is exactly what it did. I took a long here, and then I partialed out here, and then I partialed out here. So this was my first trade of the morning. I normally don't take very large trades pre-market, but when I see something this obvious and with this much volume, I feel confident. And I will give you one other thing that is very important. If you go down to the bottom, you're going to see these volume candles. This volume came in right around 750, and everybody was looking for the same catalyst, the same bull flag, and they all moved in, which helped me. Okay, next I'm going to show you the big volume that came in at 8 and exactly what happened. Alright, this is the huge volume that came in at 8, the FOMO that jumped on everyone, and exactly what happened and where those levels were. So as you can see, right around 8 o'clock, we had a huge surge in volume come into the stock, which is basically based off of FOMO. Our candles were right at the VWAP, and they were touching some other EMA lines as well, which all coincided in that volume pushing up really strongly. So again, we were sitting right at the $11 mark. Right here is what happened. All this green came in, and then FOMO just took a hold of everyone. And then this is the 8 o'clock candle where we were trying to grab all those market orders, and it pushed up through this top level that I'd already moved, which again was, let me move my candle here. This candle was right here when I made my trade earlier. Or I'm sorry, this horizontal line. And once it pushed through this level, it continued all the way up. Now, I want you to look at the 1248 line, which we looked at earlier, which was created by a high that was several months ago. obviously you can see that this was respected. This was the second trade that I took. It was a short off of the failure for this stock to break this high. Once I saw these candles bounce off of this line, and again, it's not an exact science. Sometimes it does fall on the penny, but sometimes it gets really close and falls. So I took a short here, and then I took a small scalp on the short side here. But again, the big lesson here is that 8 o'clock and 7 o'clock are huge volume spikes when certain brokers open up and allow people to enter their market orders or just enter a trade altogether. I know I used to trade with TD, and honestly I couldn't even trade until a certain amount. I couldn't do anything before a certain time. So that's why you'll see an influx in traffic at those times. Always want to be aware of those, just because there is so much volatility at that time that can be taken advantage of. But if you're on the wrong end of that trade, it can also bite you in the butt. Let's go ahead and move to regular hours, and let's see how these candles respected the levels that we had drawn previously. So here we are at market open. Now again, keep in mind these two yellow lines that you see straight across were created well before this ever opened. And I want you to keep an eye on how these candles literally ran up several times to this 1248 level, 1250 level, and they just could not hold. You would see orders go through and come back down. And everything hung right around VWAP. It looks as if confidence just was not there to push this higher, because they knew the previous close was so high, they just didn't have confidence it was going to continue higher. So the bulls tried to push this up several times. Honestly, this really isn't a stock that I would have liked to have traded at the open. Just look at the size of these wicks. That is ridiculous. That's not what we like to see. The pre-market volume was wonderful. The pre-market setups were okay. But this market open, this is ridiculous. You never want to see candles that have wicks this large, dojis this so spread out. Again, we can see massive dojis, and even over here into the 950 to 10 o'clock. The levels that we set were respected for about 20 minutes. Everything was in a channel from around 1248 to 1142. That is only $1 difference, and it took it 20 minutes to bounce in between. So honestly, you could have scalped this, but I wouldn't have suggested it. Everybody has their own game, so I'm not going to tell you what to or what not to trade. But the one thing is, when I trade in a market open, I like to play VWAP. I want you to take a look at these levels and see what would have happened if you would have traded VWAP. We're going to grab our pointer here. If you would have traded this loss, you would have gotten stopped out. If you would have traded for the loss here, you could have taken a small scalp. But again, we're only looking at a 15-cent win, and then it would have came back to VWAP where you would have had to break open. Here you could have taken a break over the VWAP, and again, it does move higher. But the amount of money that you're making, you want to see it continue to move higher and make new highs. You don't want to see it come right back down to the VWAP. And that's why this stock just looked completely ugly. Honestly, I stopped looking at it after this, and we can see here it finally did lose VWAP, but it was just so choppy. Again, you can see these one minute candles coming up, just enough to squeeze someone out and then give back. Not really good. It had a lot of volume, a really nice catalyst, but I want to go back and show you why we would have known that this was going to happen on the daily. Alright guys, the last thing I want to show you on this stock, and then we're going to move over to Nvidia, is former runners always can be looked at for what happens after they pop. And this is exactly what's going to happen in this stock. 2 times we have seen this stock run up previous to August, runs all the way up to this level here, and then exactly what happens. We have a gap down. We move up here, and then incredible gap down. We run up here, which set this level that we looked at, and then an incredible gap down the next day. What does that mean? Everybody is seeing this, and they know that this price is not going to sustain. So what's going to happen is it's going to run up pre-market, it's going to set levels, and then tomorrow, if there's shorts available, This is what everyone is going to be looking for to go to the short side and catch this gap down. So I hope you learned a little bit there. We're going to jump over and look at something that Nvidia did this morning. I didn't trade Nvidia, but once I looked at it, I said, maybe I should have traded Nvidia at the bell. Oh, Nvidia, why did I not trade you this morning? I could have made everything that I needed to make off of one trade, but it didn't happen, and that's okay. So we're looking at the daily levels right now, and as you can see, Nvidia has been on a tear recently, making new highs, giving back some profit, making new highs again, giving back a little bit more profit. And that's exactly what happened. It made new highs and then it gave back the profit this morning, making a perfect opportunity for a short. Let's look at the 1 minute chart and see exactly where we should have entered. This is a beautiful looking chart. Now, as we can see, this white dotted line I have across the top is the previous day's close. And this candle hit that line almost to a T at the open. This line we have here, and I will try to highlight it so you guys can see, is going to be the open here at 9:30. And this massive red candle, let me grab a pen, that way we can try to highlight a little bit of things for you. This is the level right here where we see that it could not hold above that previous day close. And then as it lost, this right here was the VWAP. This is the moment once this stock lost VWAP on this huge red volume candle, that would have been the perfect entry for this stock. As you can see, it coincided with the loss of the 9 EMA and with the 50 SMA. Once it lost this line, it did not look back. And these are my support 1, support 2, support 3, and support 4 Camarilla pivots. It did not pivot at all. It pivoted down and it lost those levels. And once you saw it lost those pivot lines, it continued to move lower. Now, it did try to make a bounce here, and it did kiss the S4 Camarilla pivot several times. And it also bounced off of that line. But it just could not hold it. But the main thing is, this stock never regained VWAP. And honestly, it has not regained VWAP all morning. We could have taken one trade, and that would have been around 225.9, and now we're at 223. So that was a good $3 loss that we could have just ridden all day, and honestly, we could still be in the trade, break even set, and taking no loss, and we could just let this ride all day for ever how much you wanted to make. Thanks, you guys. I appreciate you coming and checking out the video. I hope you learned a little something, and I hope you enjoy this content. If you do, please feel free to come back and check it out anytime. Thanks.